Hello everyone, my name is Mirko, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys some advanced movement techniques that will help your game out and will help you improve as an Apex Legends player. These tips I'm going to be speaking about today are more advanced tips, so if you're a beginner out there you might struggle a little bit, but feel free to try these out anyway. If you go ahead and enjoy today's video, be sure to show your support and drop a like down below, and if you're currently not subscribed to the channel, be sure you're subscribing to not miss out on any of these future videos. So without wasting any more time, let's get into the first advanced movement technique that I like to use a lot when playing Apex Legends. So the first tip we're going to be speaking about is bounce peeking. Now bounce peeking is essentially peeking out, shooting a couple of bullets and then going back in when the enemy is about to shoot back or when the enemy is reloading, and then just abusing this technique. Now what I also like to do is when enemies are chasing me down and they're shooting at me, as soon as I've turned past the corner I immediately come back out of the corner, because enemies don't expect that at all. You're either going to catch the enemy reloading or you're going to catch the enemy doing the sprint animation, and they can't pull their gun up quick enough to do the job. The important thing when doing this tip is you only want to shoot a few bullets at a time. Even if the enemy's not dealing any damage into you, this is the whole point of the trick, to deal a small amount of damage each time to gradually lower the enemy's health and keep you intact. Now I would class this tip as a close range engagement tip because it's not something that will really work from medium to long range, so the next time you're up close with enemies, be sure to bounce peek, and I'm sure you guys will be able to pull this off. You don't want to abuse this feature as it doesn't work in every situation, and most of the time if the enemy has lower health than you, then I would go straight in for the gunfight and not worry about bounce peeking. So the next tip we're going to move on to is Zig Zagging. Now I'm sure you guys have heard of Zig Zagging. It's a retreat style of play to help you guys avoid more bullet damage. Now Zig Zagging is done very wrong by most players. I don't see them doing it correctly, so I'm going to show you guys how to do it and then I'm going to tell you guys why it's very effective. So if you're playing your controller, you want to make sure you're just using the left analog stick for running. You just want to be pressing that forward. You don't want to be moving left and right with that stick. And as for keyboard and mouse, you want to be using the W and the shift button just to be going down one line. You don't want to be using your strafe controls, the A and D. And the important part here is your right analog stick or your mouse on keyboard and mouse. You want to be moving left and right using your right stick, so you're actually running in a left and right direction. You're not strafing there. So this actually works really well, and what I recommend you guys do is move direction every half a second. You don't want to spam the left and right because you're not going to be doing a large radius of moving. You want to make sure you're taking each time about half a second, and that gives the enemy a really hard time to lock their sights down onto you, especially on console. It breaks their aim assist, and this is a really good method when you're trying to get to the closest cover and avoid as much bullet damage as possible. When you're in a situation that you're being shot at from a different angle, you don't want to try and engage with the enemy, because by the time you find the enemy, you aim at the enemy, you probably would have already gone down, and the best thing you can do in that situation is always zigzag to the closest point of cover. So the next advanced movement technique we're going to be speaking about is a slide reload feature that I don't see being used that much in this game. We've all been in that situation where you have to reload during a gunfight, and there's no better way to do that than to slide whilst you're reloaded to avoid more bullets coming your way. This is a very simple tip to do, but it can get some getting used to. So what you want to be doing is you want to make sure you're pressing the reload button before you slide. That way once the slide is finished, your gun is ready to start shooting. So you want to press the reload button and then you want to move to one direction, the direction you want to slide in. And whilst you're moving to that direction, you want to press the jump button and then you want to press the slide button, and it will just slide you to that direction. It's a very simple tip, but you don't think about it all the time when you're engaging in a gunfight, mainly because you're panicking or you're under a lot of pressure and it's not something that pops up to mind, but it's something you guys need to get used to as it can save your life in a lot of situations. Now the last tip we're going to be speaking about today is cover strafing. Now I'm sure you guys are aware how good strafing can be, and it can save your life in a lot of situations. If you guys aren't aware of strafing is, just a quick rundown, it's basically moving your character left and right to create a harder target for your opponents. But cover strafing is essentially strafing towards the closest point of cover. That way whilst you're retreating, going into cover, you're still landing shots into the enemy, and a lot of people actually do this, especially the pros. What they'll do is they'll strafe, and then mid gunfight they'll actually strafe towards the cover. That way they're slowly retreating while still dealing damage into the enemies. Now halfway through the gunfight you should be able to determine whether or not the gunfight is going your way, whether or not you're dealing more damage into the enemy than he is dealing into you, and that should determine whether or not you should carry on strafing normally or whether you should strafe towards towards cover and go into retreat mode. Usually you either have to retreat completely in a gunfight or you just continue on with a gunfight and see what happens. But with this technique, you can do both. You can retreat whilst still dealing damage into the enemy, but before it's too late and you go down, you'll be able to retreat in time. And you can actually combine this technique with the first technique I showed you, the bounce peeking, and as soon as you go back to cover, you can bait the enemy into thinking that you've retreated, or if the enemy's reloading, then you can catch them off guard and come straight out of cover. Strafing towards cover and strafing close to cover is the safest way to strafe, and if you do need to retreat, you can just strafe over the cover. Once you pass the cover, that's when you can decide if you're going to fully retreat or if you're going to come back out and surprise the enemy. So anyway guys, that's going to wrap this video up here. I've got so many more advanced movement tips I want to speak about, so I'm probably going to be doing a part 2 video on the channel, so be sure you're subscribing for that if you haven't subscribed already, and be sure you're dropping a like to support the video. Anyway guys, as always, my name's been Mirko, and I'll catch all of you guys out in another brand new Apex Legends video.